In a world awash with information, where it's often easier to feel overwhelmed than truly informed, the deep dive is your direct path to clarity and insight.
We really try to cut through the noise.
We take a stack of sources, articles, research, our own meticulous notes, and distill them into the most potent nuggets of knowledge, serving up surprising facts and those wonderful aha moments you crave.
All without that feeling of information overload, hopefully.
Today, we're embarking on a journey into the mind of a philosopher whose insights are perhaps more relevant than ever in our quest to understand genuine human connection.
Definitely feels timely.
We're talking about Dietrich von Hildebrand, a name that might not be on everyone's tongue, but certainly one held in the highest esteem within philosophical and theological circles.
Oh, absolutely. Popes, no less, have called him the 20th century doctor of the church.
And one of the great ethicists. That's incredibly high praise.
It really is. And as we'll see today, it's for very good reason. Hildebrand offers a remarkably fresh and profound perspective on what it truly means to be human.
And maybe even more critically,
what it means to be in community. Our mission today is to unpack his seminal 1930 work, Metaphysics of Community.
a foundational text.
Hugely foundational. We'll explore his unique vision of what authentic community truly is, how it's fundamentally built upon our understanding and response to objective value.
Value being key here.
Absolutely central. And the surprising, transformative ways community fulfills our deepest human nature. We'll be drawing directly from his extraordinary life experiences.
Which were certainly extraordinary.
And the foundational insights presented in the first 5 chapters of this influential book. It's a deep dive into an author who believed that understanding community was essential to countering the totalitarian threats of his time.
A lesson that perhaps resonates even today, wouldn't you say?
I think it does, very much so.
That's a powerful mission for a deep dive. Metaphysics of Community really feels like a book born out of, well, necessity.
A deep, pressing need.
But before we fully immerse ourselves in his philosophical framework, let's gain a deeper appreciation for the man himself. Dietrich von Hildebrand. His full name, Dietrich Richard Alfred von Hildebrand.
Quite a name.
He came into the world in Florence, Italy, on October 12, 1889. What's particularly striking about his early life is his upbringing.
Yeah, that's fascinating. He grew up in a German secular household.
Quite a contrast to the devout Catholic identity he would later embrace. His father, Adolf von Hildebrand, was actually a renowned sculptor.
Right, so an artistic, cultured background, but decidedly non-religious.
And Dietrich's early education came primarily from private tutors.
What's truly fascinating here, though, and maybe gives us a clue into his later philosophy, is that despite this non-religious background, Hildebrand developed an incredibly profound sensitivity from a very young age.
Not just intellectual curiosity.
No, much deeper. He was deeply attuned to beauty, to value, and remarkably, even to the sacred. This wasn't something he was taught. It seemed sort of innate.
Like a predisposition.
Exactly. His intellectual journey truly accelerated when he joined Edmund Husserl's influential circle at the University of Munich. Husserl, for those maybe unfamiliar, was the founder of Phenomenology.
Which focuses on observing things as they appear,
Right.
without preconceptions.
Precisely. Rigorous observation of phenomena in consciousness. Hildebrand later completed his doctorate at the University of Göttingen under both Husserl and Adolf Reinach.
Both major influences.
Huge influences. He credited them with significantly shaping his philosophical views. This early immersion in phenomenology, this meticulous observation, it laid crucial groundwork.
How so?
Allowed him to examine human experience, things like community, love, with incredible precision, letting the phenomena speak for themselves, not forcing them into pre-existing boxes.
Like a scientist observing nature.
Kind of, yeah. Letting the experience reveal its own truth.
And it wasn't just academic influences at play for Hildebrand. There was a pivotal moment, wasn't there? A real turning point.
Oh, definitely. His conversion to Catholicism in 1914, that was huge.
What influenced that?
It was deeply influenced by another prominent philosopher, Max Scheler, whose work on ethics and values resonated strongly with him.
Scheller's big on value, too.
Very much so. And also, interestingly, by the profoundly inspiring figure of St. Francis of Assisi.
Wow, that's quite a blend. Phenomenology and St. Francis.
Right. The rigorous analysis meets deep spiritual fervor. His life also intersected with history in a very real way. He served briefly as a physician's assistant in Munich during World War I.
Like a surgical nurse, I read.
Yeah, so he wasn't just an ivory tower philosopher. He saw human suffering up close.
That practical experience must have informed his thinking.
You have to assume so. And his intellectual integrity, his moral courage, it became evident remarkably early on, long before many others saw the danger.
You mean with National Socialism?
Exactly. From as early as 1921, Hildebrand was a staunch, incredibly vocal critic.
That is early.
It is. He saw it not just as, a political problem,
But something deeper.
fundamentally anti-Christian, philosophically unsound, a kind of poison at the root of human dignity, as he saw it.
And speaking out like that, it must have been dangerous.
Extremely. This principled opposition, which he articulated clearly and publicly, put him in direct personal danger. He was forced to flee Munich briefly during the 1923 putsch.
Hitler's beer hall putsch.
That's the one. A clear sign he was already seen as a threat to the nascent Nazi movement.
And it only got worse from there, obviously.
Much worse. With Hitler's rise to power in 1933, Hildebrand knew he couldn't stay in Germany. He had to flee.
Where did he go first?
First to Italy, then to Vienna. In Vienna, he found a powerful, albeit brief, ally in the Austrian Chancellor Engelbert Dollfuss.
Dollfuss was also anti-Nazi, right?
Yes, though a controversial figure himself for other reasons. But with Dollfuss's support, Hildebrand founded and edited Der Christliche Standestaat.
The Christian corporative state.
Right, and this wasn't just some academic journal. It was a powerful anti-Nazi weekly paper, systematically critiquing their ideology week after week.
You can imagine how well that went down.
Exactly. The Nazis were furious. They sentenced him to death in absentia.
Living under a death sentence. Just imagine.
The constant threat must have been immense. His escape odyssey really highlights his conviction.
He had to flee again, didn't he, after the Anschluss?
Yes, in 1938, after Austria's annexation by Nazi Germany, he was forced to flee for his life, again. He spent 11 harrowing months in Switzerland.
Just trying to stay safe.
Then moved to France, where he taught at the Catholic University of Toulouse. But then the Nazis invaded France in 1940.
So the danger returned.
Right back at his doorstep, he went into hiding. And it was only with heroic assistance from courageous individuals.
Like Edmond Michelet and Varian Fry.
Yes, people from the French resistance, American journalists. They helped him manage this incredible escape. From France, eventually by ship from Portugal to Brazil.
What a journey.
And finally, he arrived in New York City in 1940. This whole ordeal, it just speaks volumes about his commitment to truth, his opposition to tyranny. He risked absolutely everything.
An incredible testament to his spirit, his principles. And he found refuge in the U.S.
Intellectual refuge, yes.
Okay.
He started teaching philosophy at Fordham University in 1940, right up until his retirement in 1960.
And he wasn't just teaching, right? He was mentoring, too.
Very much so. Shaping minds, including the notable Catholic author Rhonda Shervin, who often spoke of his huge influence on her.
And even in later life, his mind didn't stop working.
Not at all. He continued writing prolifically, dozens of books in both German and English, really solidifying his philosophical legacy.
No, it's worth noting he was a complex figure, especially later on regarding church changes.
That's important context, yes. He became a vocal critic of certain implementations of the Second Vatican Council.
Particularly the changes to the Mass, the move away from Latin.
Exactly. He strongly advocated for the traditional Latin Mass, the Tridentine Mass. But here's the interesting thing.
What's that?
His earlier personalist work, the philosophy emphasizing the unique dignity and freedom of the person.
Yes.
That work actually prepared the ground for many of the Council's key teachings.
Like on the freedom of persons, or the meaning of marriage.
Precisely. His ideas on the freedom of persons, the unitive end of sexual intercourse, they resonate deeply with council documents. So while he critiqued certain expressions of change, he always advocated for continuity with tradition.
So a loyalty even amidst critique.
Deep loyalty, yes.
Yeah.
He passed away in New Rochelle, New York in 1977, and his impact was widely recognized, as we said, by Popes Pius XII, John Paul II, Benedict XVI, cementing his place as a major figure in 20th century Catholic thought.
What a life. Deep conviction, intellectual rigor, incredible courage, philosophical and spiritual integrity.
All of it woven together.
Which brings us directly to the book we're exploring today, Metaphysics of Community, published way back in 1930. Tell us about the context of its creation. It feels so timely, even prescient.
Absolutely. The book was written between 1928 and 1929, just as those ominous clouds of totalitarianism were really gathering over Europe.
Nazism, communism.
He saw both rising threats, Nazism in Germany, communism from the East, as equally wicked, equally destructive ideologies. He felt this deep philosophical compulsion.
A necessity.
A profound necessity, yes, to lay bare the philosophical foundations for a critique of these systems. He wasn't interested in just a political argument.
He wanted to go deeper.
To the very roots of what community is, and expose where these ideologies fundamentally went wrong, how they distorted or denied human nature.
And he felt this work prepared him later.
He did. He later reflected that working on Metaphysics of Community had almost providentially prepared him for his active anti-Nazi mission in Austria.
How so?
It gave him the fundamental philosophical clarity, the arguments, that he simply wouldn't have had the leisure or, frankly, the safety to develop during those incredibly turbulent years fighting Nazi propaganda directly.
Wow. So his intellectual work and his active resistance were deeply linked.
Absolutely intertwined. His philosophy fueled his action, and his action gave urgency to his philosophy.
That's powerful. And the book has a very unique dedication too, doesn't it? Something quite personal.
It absolutely does, and it reveals another layer of what community meant to him. It's dedicated to Siegfried Johannes Hamburger.
His philosophical alter ego, he called him.
Exactly. A profoundly close friend from their student days under Husserl in Göttingen. Hildebrand held Hamburger in such incredibly high esteem.
How high?
He famously said he would reconsider everything if Hamburger disagreed with him.
Everything. That's immense trust.
It speaks volumes about the intellectual bond, the deep personal connection. It wasn't just friendship. It was an intellectual partnership of the highest order.
And some scholars think Hamburger actually wrote parts.
Well, there are passages described as having a certain poetic flight and flourish that some believe must have been Hamburger's contribution, suggesting this incredibly close, almost co-authorship in spirit.
Amazing. And Hamburger himself had quite a path later on.
Yes, he became a deeply spiritual, almost saintly figure, ending his life in a monastery. This dedication just highlights how personal, how collaborative, almost spiritual this foundational work was for Hildebrand.
So philosophy wasn't a solitary pursuit for him.
Not at all. It was a shared journey, pursuing truth and value, ideally with others.
What a fascinating backstory for such an important text. Now, let's dive into the core of Hildebrand's philosophy, starting with his understanding of the human person and the crucial role of value.
Right. Let's get into it.
He begins by tackling this idea of substance. Now, that might sound a bit abstract, maybe technical.
Yeah, it's a philosophical term, but it's absolutely crucial.
Crucial for understanding his view on the individual and then community. How does he define substance? Why is it so foundational?
It is foundational. For Hildebrand, a substance is essentially a whole, something united in itself. It possesses inner cohesion, a stable, independent structure.
Something that marks it off from its surroundings.
Exactly. Clearly delimits it. Think of it like this: a stone. For him, a stone is a substance. Its parts are tightly bound. It has a clear, relatively constant shape and internal organization.
Independent of where you put it.
Right. Independent, the distinct thing.
Yeah.
Now, compare that to, say, a quantity of water in a container.
Okay.
Is that a substance in the same way? Hildebrand would say no.
Why not?
Because its shape is totally arbitrary, right? It's defined by the container, not by the water itself. It lacks that stable, independent structure, that inner cohesion.
Got it. Even something like a hill.
Even a hill, he argues, while it has some cohesion, is too enmeshed in its environment. Its boundaries are too fluid. It's not a thing in that full, self-contained sense. The key is that intrinsic unity and independent structure.
So, inner unity, distinct inherent boundaries. And living beings, like plants and animals, they're a step up from inanimate objects in this view.
Definitely a step up. Living beings, organisms, he calls them microcosms.
Microcosms.
Yeah. True individuals with an inner organizing principle, a life force that clearly demarcates them from other organisms. They aren't just, artificially carved out from some larger mass like cutting a piece of metal.
The connections within them are stronger.
Far tighter, more essential than any connections between them. This makes blurring their individual boundaries impossible, he argues. The whole idea of some unified life stream that individuals just participate in.
He rejects that.
Rejects it based on observation. Living beings are substances in a much fuller, more robust sense than mere material things. They have a self-contained purpose and being.
Okay, so if living beings are fuller substances, where does the human person fit? This feels like the critical leap.
Yes. This is where it gets incredibly profound. The human being, as a person, represents the highest, most unique form of substance.
What makes the person unique?
It's not just a living organism, it's a conscious being, possessing a unique, self-aware center of consciousness.
This sounds
Right. This I is self-possessed. It belongs to itself, and it's free.
Yeah.
This introduces, he says, a completely novel and measurably deeper character of being. It's not just more complex, it's a fundamentally different kind of being.
Marked by interiority, self-awareness, agency.
Exactly. A whole new region of reality opens up with the person.
So an individual, conscious, free I. That sounds intensely independent, almost. Isolated.
It does sound that way initially.
So how does that intensely individual self relate to community? Is it a contradiction, or is there a paradox here?
That's the absolute core paradox Hildebrand explores, and it's a real aha moment. He emphasizes the absolute individuality of the human person.
Absolutely.
Meaning each of us exhibits perfect unity, an inner cohesion devoid of any arbitrary element, and a sharp demarcation relative to every other individual.
So what does that mean practically?
It means persons cannot simply melt into some larger unity like drops of water in a stream. They can't be genuine parts of a larger whole, like a brick is just a part of a wall.
This sounds like a direct challenge to certain views.
A direct, fundamental, powerful refutation of pantheistic views or collectivistic ones that see the individual as just a fragment of a bigger spirit or life stream.
Or the state swallowing the individual.
Precisely. It's a profound defense of human liberty and dignity against the philosophical roots of totalitarianism, which often does try to erase the individual for the collective. Hildebrand insists each person is a complete, irreducible world of his own.
A world of his own. That paints a picture of incredible independence. So, again, how does this absolute individuality connect to community? How do these distinct worlds bridge the gap?
Okay, here's the truly fascinating part. The profound twist. Despite being this complete world of his own,
Yes.
the human person only finds the fulfillment of his nature in spiritual contact with other persons, in union with them. In short, in community.
Only, so it's essential.
Essential. It's not a diminishment of the individual, quite the opposite. He calls it a moral enlargement.
Where you become more than you already are.
Exactly. More than the complete whole one already is. Personhood, for Hildebrand, isn't just individualistic. It is intrinsically communal. We are built for self-transcendence, for moving beyond ourselves, for self-gift in relationship.
Our deepest flourishing isn't in isolation.
No, it's an authentic connection.
That's a powerful challenge to modern individualism. So, if we're individual yet designed for connection, how do we connect? You mentioned his concept of value as the unifying force.
Yes, value is the bridge.
And this isn't just subjective preference, right? What does he mean by objective value?
This is absolutely central. Objective value. For Hildebrand, values moral ones like justice, charity, intellectual ones like truth, ontological ones like existence itself, aesthetic ones like beauty. They are not just subjective preferences we spin out of our own minds.
Not just what I think is good or beautiful.
No. He argues they are real properties, inherent qualities of things or persons. They have their own sovereign being and autonomous existence. They can impose themselves on us.
Impose themselves? How?
They call for a response. Think of beauty. It's not just in the eye of the beholder. Something is objectively beautiful, and whoever truly, rightly receives that beauty will genuinely find it, be moved by it. It's not something we project. It's something we discover and respond to, recognizing its intrinsic worth.
That distinction feels vital. It anchors community in something real.
Something beyond just utility or subjective agreement. Something solid.
Okay, so these values exist independently. They call for a response. How do we as persons relate to them? He identifies 4 distinct ways.
Yes, 4 distinct relationships, showing this dynamic interplay between the person and the realm of value. It's quite insightful.
Let's hear them.
First, a value can take residence in the person. This isn't just doing a good deed. It's a kind of transformative indwelling.
Like charity becoming part of who you are?
Exactly. It's woven into your character. You are charitable. You radiate it almost unconsciously. It's a fundamental transformation of the self.
Okay, what's the second?
Second, a person can become a bearer of value through their responses, related to the first, but emphasizing the person as a kind of vessel. By consistently responding rightly to value, say, through acts of mercy, you become merciful. Your personhood itself reflects and embodies that value.
Like realizing virtue within yourself.
Precisely, making your very being more valuable. Third, a person can engage in self-giving to something valuable.
Like dedicating your life to something.
Yes, committing yourself entirely for the sake of a value. Think of a scientist dedicating their life to truth, or an artist pouring their soul into creating beauty, often at great personal cost. The value itself becomes the driving force.
And the 4th way. This sounds inspiring.
It is. Finally, a person can become a value or a gift for others. Think of a saint or anyone living a life of profound virtue.
Through who they are, they become a light.
A light or a gift, exactly. Their life itself becomes a shining manifestation of objective value, inspiring and uplifting others. They don't just do good, they are good, and the goodness radiates.
That's profound. It connects value to our very being. And you also said values themselves call us into community. How does that work?
Yes, he observed that our very experience of objective value pushes us towards community. It's not just a private affair.
How so?
When we encounter something truly beautiful, say, breathtaking music, a stunning view, a heroic act, it's often not enough for me to make some private response.
Right. You feel like you have to tell someone.
Exactly. You feel this urge, this inner necessity to go tell someone about it, share the experience, point it out, see their response. Our experience of value can feel incomplete until it's shared.
That drive points to our communal nature.
Directly. And think about the atmosphere of a community. It's deeply shaped by the values present, isn't it?
Sure, a toxic environment versus a supportive one.
Right. A harsh, degraded place where values are ignored can poison the atmosphere. But a community embracing positive values can fill our experience with richness, harmony. It's subtle but profound.
It resonates. It's not just about what we like, but what we recognize as worthy and feel compelled to share. This leads us to Hildebrand's view on motivations for human action.
Yes, challenging those individualistic assumptions.
So we're only driven by self-interest. He distinguishes 3 ways acts can be motivated, moving beyond just pursuing private goods.
Crucial distinction for understanding community. First, motivation by what is subjectively satisfying.
Personal preferences, pleasure.
Exactly. Choosing your favorite ice cream. Watching a movie you enjoy. Purely individual, based on taste. Doesn't really call for community in a deep sense.
My liking Rocky Road doesn't impose on you.
Right. Second motivation. What is objectively fulfilling?
Things that meet universal human needs, like health.
Precisely. Exercising even if you hate it, eating well, you do it because you know it contributes to your well-being, fulfills part of your human nature, regardless of preference.
Here, people are seen as ends deserving these goods.
Yes, it moves beyond preference, but is still focused on individual well-being. But the third motivation is the key one for community.
Which is?
Motivation by what is important in itself, or simply what is valuable.
Based on intrinsic worth.
Intrinsic worth, totally independent of whether it satisfies us or fulfills our needs. Certain actions are just or unjust, artworks beautiful or ugly, truth true or false. These values call for a response.
Like rectifying injustice, admiring beauty.
Exactly. Not as a means to an end, not for personal fulfillment, not because it feels good, but because the value itself is worthy of that response. It lifts us beyond ourselves.
So responding because something is valuable has dignity, not because of what's in it for me. How does this relate specifically to other persons? This seems crucial for community.
Absolutely crucial. When we truly revere or adore another person, we're not responding to what they can do for us or some quality that fulfills our needs.
We're responding to them.
To their inherent value as a whole person, a unique, irreducible dignity. We're grateful for their very existence. This is a radical act of self-transcendence.
Moving beyond our own needs.
Yes, beyond our needs, desires, even subjective experiences, to make genuine contact with a whole, valuable person who is other than me. This relationality is fundamental. We're always already in relation, at least to God, and disposed to relate to others.
So relationships aren't primarily about conflict or competition.
No, Hildebrand would say they're defined by a deeper peace, a disposition to give ourselves, to offer a due response for value. Conflict is a breakdown of that fundamental orientation. This self-transcending movement towards the other for their own sake is the core of personhood and the foundation of true community.
That's a beautiful transition to the architecture of community itself. If we're oriented toward others and motivated by value, how does this spiritual contact and union actually happen? You mentioned a spectrum.
Yes, a rich spectrum, from the superficial to the profoundly intimate. He carefully maps it out. Lowest level, just looking at someone, unperceived.
Okay.
Second level, they perceive the gaze but don't reciprocate. Third, mutual looking, but maybe without deep interpenetration.
And the highest?
The highest level of individual contact is the I-thou contact, ich du Berührung. This is crucially deeper and more significant than just being externally near someone.
What defines it?
It happens in the interpenetrating look of love or hatred. Both persons are drawn into the spiritual situation simultaneously as subject and object. It's reciprocal, a true, direct meeting where innermost selves are recognized and responded to. Conscious, intentional, person to person.
That's a powerful description of a direct encounter, and distinct from that is the we contact, right? How is that different?
Yes, the we contact, Verberung, is distinct, almost diametrically opposed, he says. Here, persons connect without one becoming an object to the other, maybe without even seeing each other in that direct I-thou way.
How does it happen then?
Primarily in the joint performance of acts and stances. Think about it. A group making a request together, mourning a shared loss, jointly appreciating a painting.
A shared experience.
Exactly. A new kind of act is experienced, not just individual acts summed up. It's a shared collective consciousness. Persons become, in a real sense, parts of a larger communal subject, the we.
A shared spiritual consciousness.
Yes, a mental taking each other by the hand. The focus isn't on the other as thou, but on the shared activity uniting them. You're participating with others.
Okay, clear distinction. One direct, one shared. How do these contacts lead to union and then to something deeper, becoming one? What's the difference?
Good question. They sound similar, but are distinct stages. Union happens when positive stances with a core of love like reverence, respect, enthusiasm are mutually performed.
Mutual positive feeling.
And crucially, including a union tendency, a real movement toward the other, engaging with them. This marks a new stage of participation, linked by shared positive responses and desire for connection.
Okay, so that's union. What's becoming one?
Becoming one, Einsetzung, is the higher peak, the ultimate connection. It requires express love, not just general goodwill.
More than just sympathy.
Much more. The inner word of love, the deepest affirmation and desire becomes loud, is perceived by the beloved, and critically is reciprocated. Only in that interpenetrating look of full love, hearts truly open and mutually giving, does becoming one occur.
A mutual spiritual interpenetration.
Yes, but, and this is crucial, it in no way touches the personal being of their own. It's not merging or blurring boundaries.
So you remain distinct individuals.
Absolutely. You remain a distinct world of his own, even in the deepest unity. It's a paradox. The more truly you become one with another in love, the more fully and uniquely you become yourself.
And underpinning all this, love itself is what?
Fundamentally a value response. It must be motivated by the other person being in itself precious and valuable, not just useful or pleasant.
You can't truly love something not intrinsically valuable.
Correct. Unlike just feeling joy about a sunny day. This anchors love beyond mere emotion or self-interest. Every genuine act of love, he says, has two basic elements.
Okay, what are they?
First, flowing goodness, intentio benevolentiae. This is the unique affirmation of the other's being and happiness.
Wanting the best for them.
Yes, expressed through good deeds, sacrifices, loving care. It's the proper stuff of love, the outward movement of wanting their flourishing simply because they are valuable.
And the second element?
The second is the union tendency, intentio unionis, a deep, inherent longing for community with the other.
To participate in their life.
Yes, their interest, thoughts, presence, and above all, their essence. This desire finds its fullest fulfillment only in reciprocation.
Why only in reciprocation?
Because if the other doesn't reciprocate that specific, profound movement of love, you can't fully reach them as a person in that way. Union is only fully realized when it's mutual, dynamic. This mutual interpenetration goes deep while respecting their individuality. It's a yearning for shared spiritual life.
So love is this dynamic response to value, driven by benevolence and a desire for union. This brings us to the diverse categories of love he identifies.
Yes, 10 classical categories.
Each unique in degree, quality, depth. And he mentions the role of gender. That's interesting.
Yes, he delves into nuances. He emphasizes masculine and feminine, not just biologically, but as deep-seated formal differences of the spiritual person.
Spiritual differences.
Yes, this mutual assignment gives a distinct note to love between sexes. Fundamental in marital love, a coloring note in friendship or sibling love.
But not all love.
Not in love of neighbor or conviction-based love, he says. And crucially, it's not primarily about the sensual sphere, except uniquely in marital love where it's integrated. It's about fundamental spiritual orientations.
Fascinating. Let's explore some categories. Parental love. How does he describe that unique bond?
Parental love is distinct, characterized by a specific gaze towards the child. Not face-to-face like marital love, nor side-by-side like siblings.
How then?
He describes it as the parent standing behind the child, protecting, encompassing them, while the child's face is turned towards their own life, tasks, work, loving over their head.
Affirming their emerging self.
Exactly. Affirming their personhood, their unique path. In parental love, the intentio benevolentiae, the flowing goodness, clearly comes first. The deepest desire is the child's flourishing, well-being, happiness, even if it means letting go.
It desires reciprocal love, but not becoming one.
Right. It yearns for the child's love, but not that total mutual interpenetration of marital love. It's a love that gives wings, prepares them for independence.
And sibling love, often taken for granted, but unique.
Characterized by a typical side-by-side, Nebedei-Naderstein stance, a strong we-connectedness, Wir-Verbundenheit. What's unique is siblings are connected before all love.
Shared origin, history.
Exactly. A primal natural bond, a fertile ground for love and deep familiarity. There's a relative unveiling of self, a comfort.
But not the ultimate disclosure.
No, not explicit or thematic like in marriage. Communication often happens from self-evident understanding. Words are almost unnecessary sometimes. It's not primarily for the love itself, but from a need to share joy-suffering within that deep familiarity. Understanding is presupposed. A bond of shared reality. Okay, moving to friendship. How is that different? What makes it unique?
Friendship love can deepen limitlessly, even to holy friendship in Christ. It has a characteristic tranquility, trust, a specific understanding built over time.
How does it manifest?
Involves interpenetrating looks of approval, self-opening, but not the disclosure of the deepest word of one's being found in marital or thematic holy love.
The understanding comes from shared values.
Often mediated through shared objective values, truth, beauty, justice, a common cause. That shared ground deepens the bond. His spatial analogy, diagonally side by side.
Like a semicircle.
Kind of, holding hands, looking at each other, but not fully face to face. In friendship, intentio unionis and intentio benevolentiae are roughly equal. Maybe benevolence has a slight edge.
The aim isn't total merging.
No, it aims at an understanding connectedness, spiritual resonance, but not becoming one. Each remains rooted in their own life. It's a limited union, focused on mutual understanding and reliance and shared values. Clear progression in intimacy? What about love simpliciter, love for a lovable person? How does that fit?
Love simpliciter is crucial. It distinguishes genuine love from mere liking. It involves a real movement of the self toward the beloved person.
Beyond finding them pleasant or useful.
Yes. Truly appreciating, respecting, esteeming them, it grasps the other person as such, recognizing their inherent worth just as a person. This differentiates it from familial loves, even spousal love to an extent.
But it doesn't involve ultimate self-giving.
No, not the profound self-giving or becoming one of marital or thematic holy love. It's that fundamental recognition and affirmation of the other's lovableness, moving towards them, but without the ultimate commitment. It's the spontaneous response to their sheer value, setting the stage perhaps for deeper connections.
This all builds towards the pinnacle. Marital love and thematic holy love. Let's take marital love. What makes it stand apart?
Marital love stands apart. Its character is obvious. The loving persons face one another fully. You see Gegenüberstehen. Direct, unreserved encounter.
And a desire for union.
The intentio unionis clearly leads, dominates. It aims explicitly, profoundly, at complete becoming one. The mutual love is the proper theme of the relationship.
Involving ultimate self-giving.
Ultimate self-giving, unreserved offering of the whole self. Unveiling of one's deepest essence. Nothing held back. It has a unique radiance and inner tension, pulling them deeper.
Leading to a heightened awareness.
Yes, a delighted grasp of the beloved's entire value possibility, seeing who they are meant to be. This is where being in love, Verliebtheit, emerges. The beloved becomes transparent.
Their inner essence shines through.
Far beyond normal human expression. And crucially, exclusivity. The value of the beloved in spousal love is meant only for you. It addresses itself personally.
So it's objectively wrong for someone else to respond that way.
Objectively wrong, Hildebrand argues, regardless of norms or feelings. That exclusivity is rooted in the unique address of value between these two persons.
Wow. Face-to-face, ultimate self-giving, exclusive becoming one. How does thematic holy love relate to this? It sounds rare.
It is rare, distinct, possible only in the highest value sphere, centered on God, the community in Christ. It shares the pure face-to-face aspect and the intentio unionis aiming at becoming one.
But the theme is different.
The unique theme is Christ. The interpenetrating gaze goes entirely through him. Its radiance reflects a common love for Christ. They are loving each other in Christ and out of Christ, participating in Christ's love for the other's unique individuality.
Transcending everyday life.
Elevating them above the world, he says. It requires an objective correlate. The beloved must somehow embody immersion in the world of Christ.
That sounds incredibly profound, almost mystical.
It is. The becoming one here is total in depth, but not breadth. It doesn't extend to the vital sensual sphere like marriage. It unfolds from above in Christ.
So distinct from marital love.
Qualitatively distinct. Lacks the tendency for sensual inclusion, certain types of self-surrender, maintains a last restraint, a reverence. Here, intentio benevolentiae either balances or takes the head start over intentio unitas, because its deepest gesture is giving the other to Christ, desiring their ultimate spiritual good. And unlike marriage, it necessarily presupposes reciprocity and complete conviction-based community in faith. It can't be one-sided.
And finally, the unconditional love. Love of neighbor, Caritas. How does this fit, especially relative to thematic holy love?
Love of neighbor, Caritas, is deeply related to thematic holy love because it's also in the highest value spheres. He focuses on the Christian supernatural form for its purity. It shares the participation in Christ's love, dwelling in the radiance of Christ.
But there's a key distinction.
Yes, the primary foundation is not the unique individuality of the other, their charm or relationship to us. It's the value radiance that surrounds every human being as such.
Simply because they exist as a person loved by God.
Because they possess an immortal soul infinitely loved by Christ and redeemed by his blood. An unconditional affirmation of dignity no matter who they are.
And it doesn't seek reciprocity.
It's the love least aimed at reciprocity. A longing for the other to respond exists, but plays a minimal role in driving the action. The focus is inspiring loving behavior in the other, awakening their own capacity for good.
Not demanding a response back.
Exactly. Characterized by a principled readiness to renounce self-gain, even satisfaction. Described as heroic, invulnerable, triumphant, unaffected by reciprocity. The gaze is fixed on their intrinsic value as a child of God.
So benevolence dominates union here.
Clearly prevails. Intentio benevolentiae over intentio unionis. It rushes to the other, not to unite with him, but to envelop him with goodness and to draw him to Jesus.
That sounds incredibly powerful, selfless, transformative, beyond personal boundary.
It is. This floating love, expecting nothing for itself, has an irresistible power. It can melt the ice crust of pride. Most irresistible because it asks nothing back.
Allowing one to live the life of God.
That's how he puts it. Bridging the chasm between one's own life and the lives of others. Not absorbing their life, but through God. Seeing distinctions recede in light of a greater shared reality. Fundamentally affirming their worth. Creating unconditional community.
What an incredible journey through Dietrich von Hildebrand's Metaphysics of Community. We've moved far beyond simplistic individualism.
Way beyond.
To a truly rich, nuanced understanding of personhood, objective value, and the diverse architecture of community and love. From the unique world of its own to finding fulfillment in self-transcendence and union.
His insights really invite us to rethink our connections.
Indeed. If, as Hildebrand rigorously suggests, our deepest fulfillment lies not in isolated self-possession, but in self-transcendence and spiritual union.
Which is a radical claim today.
What does this mean for how we define freedom and purpose in our own lives? How does recognizing objective value that calls us forth rather than just what satisfies us change our approach to every relationship?
From the casual encounter to the most intimate bond.
Yeah. This vision challenges us to see relationships not just as means to satisfaction, but as essential paths to becoming more than the complete whole one already is.
It's a profound challenge to how we live, really, how we relate.
That's a powerful thought to linger on. A call to deeper engagement with the world and with each other. We highly encourage you to explore Hildebrand's Metaphysics of Community, his other works too.
There's so much more there.
To continue your own deep dive into these transformative ideas. Thank you for joining us on The Deep Dive.